Oh my goodness. Seriously, I have to just do it. It's like I can tell myself I don't have to think about things that don't matter.
I was designed to do those things. How the hell does this guy know this about me?
It's impossible to not see.
When Dan read for my sister, she was like, he's psychic. She's like, how does he know that?
Yes.
She's like, it's human design, guys. Like, it's just a testimony of how legit it is.
Seriously, Danny was like FBI or CIA. He's like, how the hell does this guy know this about me?
Having my chart read, there were just thing after thing after thing that I was just like, wow, that's me.
This man is reading me and I've never met him before.
I was in the midst of one of the biggest emotional waves I've ever been in my life, and he saved my life.
It seems like everybody has the same reaction. It's that aha moment, and they want to find out more. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Human Design Advantage podcast, our Sunday show. I'm your host, co-host, Jen, the Empire Heyoke, and our other co-host, Danny Guru. Hey, Dan.
Two co-hosts make one host.
Yes, it does.
See?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
How are you today, Dan?
I'm actually sore. I'm sore. I've been out for the whole weekend almost, up at a farm called Honey Badger Farm here in Massachusetts, and we had a great gathering. It was really wonderful.
You've been doing some important work, so
yeah, it's been really good. Peak Prosperity Podcast. It's Chris Martinson, and he owns a farm, and he's teaching resilience. It's really good. We had classes on everything.
We need more of that. Definitely, we need more of that. So really proud of you for doing that.
Lots of people were camping out in that New England cold weather at night. I mean, it was dropping down below 50. Cold.
Man, send some of that down here to Houston.
Yep. No, you're going to have to migrate. Well, when it gets down there, apparently it loses track and gets too cold. So it doesn't know its way around. So it goes a little, out of whack.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
We got to be careful what we wish for. So, Jen, today I was thinking how we're going to be decoding the matrix, because we're not putting up any slides. We're just having a discussion.
Yes, today's just a discussion, and it's a piggyback of last week's, which, guys, we got a really huge response on that. When I went to post today's show in YouTube, I was blown away. We had over 2,000, almost 2,000 views. It was at like 1,900, a little over 1,900. And I can't tell you how grateful I am. And I know Dan is too, speaking for both of us. Mm-hmm. That's our mission, is to get this information out there, to help you. If there is something that you guys do need help with or want to see, drop a comment, let us know. We'll start taking note of that and incorporating it into our shows. But there were a lot of positive comments about how our shows were helping people and how to get in touch with Dan and, where to start. And all you guys need to do is just go to tinyurl.com, the /HDA links, LINKS. That will take you to everywhere, how to book a session with Dan. That's the entryway to getting started, is to make sure that you have a session and to catch up on all the other stuff that we have going on. We are slowly but surely introducing some courses. Me and Dan have a mindfulness course to help. He's working on some other things. So
We'll bring more people to read online. Tressa's getting ready to say, hey, I want to jump in too. So it won't just be me. So I doubt I can handle everything once we really get going. So, quick shout out to whoever wants to learn to read. Obviously, we need readers. Maybe we'll recruit some already out there, Jen.
Possibly. Absolutely. Yeah. That's something, like, if you're interested, just go to the links down below, guys. Check us out. Send a message, an email. We'll definitely get to you. But yeah, thank you. I was so excited this morning when I saw that. So that's what it's all about.
We have no graphics. Is it possible to get one where there's just a picture of the Solar-Plex Center? that would have been maybe one of the ones from last week. If that's too much, don't bother. We'll just start.
I don't think that will be a problem because I should have the graphics still from last week.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead and get that pulled up. And
while you're doing that, I'll talk a little bit about what we're hoping to get accomplished here.
Yes, can you tell them let me tell them what the title of today's show is and the date for the podcast?
Sure.
It is September 25th, 2022. And today's title is all about part 2, Awakening of the Emotional Solar-Plexus. So,
yep. What to expect from it? What's going on, and how is this affecting us? So we're a whole planet loaded down with our human design body graphs. We're all so unique and individual. Everyone watching this by now has started to realize how unique we really are, and how we can read this in our body graph. So an experienced reader or analyst will be able to start to point to you, your type, your strategy, your authority, and the things on how you're going to navigate decision making, moving into the future. And from there forward, really. So it starts to help remove the not self, bring you into your true self, show you what your life forces are, and how to just literally rely on that and quit being what you're not. Which brings us to today's topic. If you have an open solar plex center, there it is. This is a beautiful picture. So there's 2 choices for today's show. You're either defined, where it's colored in, as you see.
I should have made it opposite, because then it would have matched how we are sitting.
Oh, that's cute. I didn't even think about that. And then on the right, you see it undefined. It's an open solar plex center, meaning it's white. If it's white in your body graph, you're open to the emotional forces. And if it's defined, you are the emotional life forces. Depending on how, it doesn't matter whether it's defined once or 2 or 3 times. You can have it defined by more than one channel. But this is what we're talking about today, because for some reason, as I always like to say, the forces or the gods chose to split humanity up 50-50 with this one. They wanted us to figure it out. He wanted us to figure it. We want us to figure this out. However you care to frame that. And when you're defined emotionally, well, you have an emotional wave that moves through this process of up and down, joy and despair. At times it can be so profound as totally joy and despair. And it's juicy and it's wonderful. We all want it. All our Hollywood movies, all the folklore that gets told, all the stories are this emotional solar plex center is always in and amongst it. The love that drives the story, the romance that comes along from it, the experiential way that goes through this emotional solar plex center and gives us so much new experience and desire and hunger, and then the tribal emotional wave that gives us everything from bonding to the deals we make and the tribal bonds that get made, sensitivity and the sensitivity to supporting your tribe. That's an emotional process on this side of the body graph. So, and if you're undefined, well, you're swept up in the wave of it all, and you're amplifying everyone else who is defined. So yesterday, I visited my mom before I went to the farm.
Mm-hmm. And, is your mom emotional or not emotional?
Everyone in my family has emotional definition except me.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And
I am emotionally defined, guys. Dan's,
I'm open.
Mm-hmm.
Emotionally undefined. So we're there, and I stand apart from my family in a certain way because I obviously chose to go a different path as it related to the the last few years and COVID, and I basically didn't buy into the whole COVID narrative, and to the degree they did, I got sort of outcast, and I still got lots of feelings about that. So, but I have no reliable way to really, I have to wait so much time for stuff to go by for me to really figure out what that means. And so I'm sitting there, and they're telling me how, my kids are coming over, and ever since I wouldn't get vaccinated and I voted for Donald Trump, they decided that I'm bad. and they rendered this emotional judgment on me. And every time I'm around, I notice myself amplifying their emotional energy. And I notice myself driving into them, giving them difficulty in their own emotional process. They're not awake and aware to their process per se. And so
it's like a back and forth thing.
very much. And I find myself getting emotionally amped up and generally leaving. So it's hard for me to be there, because as soon as I point out, hey, I'm still being punished and COVID is over, or try to point that out, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to hear it. And their emotional wave starts to go into me. And I start to amplify that nervousness, that discomfort. And I become twice as nervous, twice as uncomfortable. And it's really uncomfortable. And I still have not mastered this thing, period. Because once again, yesterday I walked out. I just said, hey, I got to go. I was polite enough. I was lying. Hey, I got to go. I did have to go, but that was still, not completely honest. It was, hey, I want to get out of this polluted field, and I'm helping.
But that's practicing self-care. So don't beat yourself up on that, because you did recognize it. You rolled the tape through. You knew what could possibly happen, and it was going to escalate. So dismissing yourself out of a situation like that is a key tool to have. That's something that you have learned, because it is a practice of self-care.
You have a good point there, Jen. And it's the thing is, so I've noticed as we keep talking this, that's the same practice of self-care that emotionally defined people who are aware of their definition, they practice. They practice the exact same thing, removing themselves.
Yes, I do have a question, because when you brought up the nervousness that you feel, I'll feel that too. So if you are emotionally defined, can you still be influenced by another person who's emotionally defined too?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I do understand that nervousness, because I have gotten it. And that's one of the key things that allows me to put my shields up really quick.
Well, just like two lovers swapping spit, we emotional people are swapping nervousnesses with you defined emotional people. We're going back and forth. We're swapping. One of us will drive it into the other. We'll drive our anxiety around it, if it's something we're not sure what's going on, into you, and suddenly you'll become aware, and then the nervousness will happen, or you'll already have something going on, and we'll walk into the field, and suddenly we're amplifying that nervousness inside of us. So we're swapping it back and forth, and it's we really need to get a handle on what this thing is supposed to do in our lives.
Perfect. I was just about to ask, let's talk about that for a moment. I know I can speak for the defined, and you can speak for the undefined. And even though you don't have it all figured out, and I don't either, I pointed out one tool that helps, and that is, we defined people do the same. I will exit from a situation or a group if I'm not feeling comfortable. And before, the 5-1 would come in, and it was how people viewed me and what they thought and all that other stuff, where now I don't do that, because it is a form of self-care. Being a defined, the best thing that has helped me is, one, recognizing the emotions and what the emotions are and where they're coming from, and digging deeper into that so that I can have a wave and not a hurricane. But I am also now self-aware that when I am emotional, I've even told you sometimes when you've sent me a text, I'm like, I'm in an emotional wave. I can't talk to you right now, and I love you. I love you for the simple fact that you understand that, instead of some people would be all up in their feelings, or, they would be magnifying just by me saying that. So,
or trying to get in on you, or asking you what's wrong, or thinking there's something wrong with them, or considering that maybe you're trying to avoid them, so they wonder what's wrong with me, or thinking that there's an avoidance going on and they're starting to wonder what's wrong with you. And all the stuff, which is everything that we're not. If you're wondering it, then that's a beauty of the mind. The mind wonders, and it lets it pass through. Let the wonder pass through. Don't allow your mind to come up with these subjective aspects that are never true. The mind is a toy box. It's here to look at things and measure a bunch of this and that and never make a decision based on it. For us, as we are emotional together, we have to learn to ride on each other's wave or absence therein.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the mind. That the thoughts and stuff, guys, that are coming up, they are most likely, emotions trigger thoughts, thoughts trigger emotions, and it can get really, really like a battle in your head. I'm someone who is very emotionally detached and topped that off with alcohol. So yeah, there were moments where I was probably like a hurricane, and now
Full
that
on
I
hurricane,
understand,
Jennifer.
huh?
Full on hurricane.
Oh man, yes, very full on hurricane.
Well,
When I had an emotional, especially on a low one as well. And I do have people in my family who are undefined. So I can now recognize where it was magnified, and that sounds like a lot of unhealthy households right now.
well,
Uh,
yeah, because
the
for me,
relationships arguing. So I'm really glad you brought up the mind, because that's where it all starts, guys. It's you are not your thoughts, for one, and you're not your emotions either. They will come up to the surface, but allow your triggers to teach you and analyze that deeper.
yeah, and for me, so that hurricane, once the non-emotional being has magnified that emotional hurricane even a little bit, it turns into a double hurricane. We can even, start riding right on that precipice of redlining anger and gets into. I mean, if couples have this and they get into severe fights, and then that pushing and shoving starts to go back and forth, which can happen, that's this thing being amplified.
Mm-hmm.
That is this thing being amplified. And you're right, we aren't our emotions. We are the clarity we get after the emotional wave has gone up and down in its cycle. So picture the clarity as being waiting out that up and down cycle, the movement through that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So that movement might be a little bit of down and a ton of up, and then it's just I can't really say just up
It
and down. It's everything.
it's not consistency. I'll tell you, I am investigating that through my experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I'm working on really trying to recognize those moments of clarity after I have the emotional wave. And this is why I feel mindfulness is so important, because when you are mindful and you pay attention to those things, you'll be able to recognize it a lot easier. So for me, journaling has helped. That helps me keep a track of like how I'm feeling, and it hasn't really been consistent. Some days it's really high. I'll be in a good spirit and I'll know when I'm high. When we came across the state national thing, that put me on a high thing, and you saw exactly what happened. Where
Yeah.
when I got down to the middle, I had a little bit more clarity and I was checking out more information. But I recognize that was an example. I recognized, oh, okay, that was a high moment. I should have waited until I was in an
Right.
even moment. But
Think of all the
recognizing,
promiscuity that takes place on the high end of that emotional wave. All the babies
yeah,
that are made, the marriages, the agreements gotten into, the purchases, the whatever, the decisions made on the high end of that wave, while they are so juicy in the moment. Let's go skydiving while it's just so good.
yes,
I'm not saying don't do it. What I'm saying, enjoy the high end of that wave. Just recognize that's not the end of your decision. So before you
correct.
say I do please sleep on it. But if the high end of your emotional wave brought you all the way to Vegas and got you near in front of the pasture in that moment to go ahead and get hitched, still back off for a moment and sleep on it. Sleep on it.
Definitely,
But
because
don't
I
not
am
go to
noticed.
Vegas on the high end of your wave. Spend the money.
No,
Get buy the tickets. Spend too much on a hotel room. Totally make all these decisions, and then later you can realize, oh my God, I was being swept away without the clarity. And you'll sleep on it. Take a day and tell the
well,
God
I think
you'll be back.
any emotional being can now go back in their life and recognize the emotional waves, because many of us have made decisions, whether it was marrying somebody in a short period of time in Vegas or whatever it is to all
Right.
sorts of different ones.
Yep.
But I have found through my experiment that it's not consistent. It depends on what you're being stimulated with on the outside that can determine it. But really recognizing in the moment that you are an emotional wave and really tracking how you feel will help that, so that you're not really having those high highs or low lows. You'll still have them, but you can ride the wave a lot easier than getting your ship, sunk in a hurricane, which happens.
It's true. And it's a thing. And there's not much we can really do with it except keep recognizing it and allow those feelings that feel like guilt to pass through, including shame, blame, all of these things that come in to make us feel like crap. If you're unemotional, recognize that sometimes you'll cry for no reason. Let it happen. Actually, Jennifer, I need to do something. Can you carry the stage for a minute? I'll be right back.
I can carry the stage for a minute. Let's talk a little bit more about the defined. I know that when I first got started on the emotional waves, I really didn't know exactly what that was. Just to recognize it, and the more that I notice it, you'll start to pay attention to how you're feeling. If you are feeling fatigued, you just have no motivation. You're having trouble getting started on things. I would say that that's really low. A lot of that could be diagnosed with different things, but it is important if you are an emotional being. And I am somebody who was under psychiatric care for depression. Again, waves. I've been medication free from that for a very long time now, but it was me recognizing my emotions and then also checking your environment. The high highs can also come in from the simple fact that, my last one was because I got excited and that filled my spirit and I was extremely happy. But when that emotional wave just came down a little and I got to an even part, I was able to recognize that that's where I got the clarity. So just pay attention a little bit more to how you are feeling and journal. And if you guys don't know how to journal or get started on journaling, just send me a message because it's one of my favorite things to do. So
it's also true. So when I look back at all the times that I was swept away emotionally, I would, as a manifesting generator, I would get so angry, so it would flash like a flash fire, like someone just poured gasoline on, salt on an open wound. And I would recognize myself being carried away. And I didn't know what that was. And so I would continue the carried awayness. But it would go away so quickly because I don't know how to have the clarity of going through the process. And over time, I found it to be a detriment. I found it to be difficult because I couldn't understand my partner or the other or the person, whatever it was that was inflaming the moment. It was always the two of us. In the past, I wanted to blame. See, it's you. And I know they wanted to blame. No, it's you. And now I recognize it's two. It can't happen without the other. The actual explosiveness of two people, or even a crowd, or even what we're seeing in our world today. The explosiveness of certain, woke people that are gone a little off the rails as it relates to, freaking out about that stuff. Or the more mundane versions of families being split apart because of COVID and that emotional, wreckage that gets caught in its wake. And the recognition that the nation was asked to make an emotional decision. Hurry up and get shot. Hurry up and get this. Hurry up and shame your neighbor if they don't. It was always being bombarded with image after image. And I realized quickly that everyone who decided that anyone who didn't get jabbed was bad, that was an emotional decision. And
That
then those
was an
that
emotion.
didn't get jabbed, we made our share of emotional decisions. My emotional decisions were constantly tripping up what I couldn't say. No matter how calm I was, no matter where I went in, as soon as that wave took over, my mind got involved and got clouded, unable to speak.
Can you describe a little bit like what that wave feels like to y'all?
Feels like poison going into my body. It's this nervousness that it's like part fire, part shard glass, sharp pieces, and part the cool silent venom of a poison that's starting to go into your body that doesn't feel good. It can cause your heart to race. It can cause breathing to shallow. It can cause almost dizziness, or a sense of dysphoria, like not quite sure where we're at. Um, it's the type of thing that I suddenly I can't really break through in the moment to really explain whatever it was I was about to say or how I'm feeling, because it's not invited. That's the thing. So the lack of clarity on the other side of the people who want to shame us for not getting jabbed, or when I say shame us, just basically have feelings about that. They then don't invite us to try and work through the clarity. They don't invite us. And so uninvited, if you look at either of these body graphs, you'll recognize any channel that doesn't come off the sacral, or any channel that doesn't go straight to the throat, one channel straight to the throat from a motor, which is, so we're talking about all like 12 channels. So every other channel, there's 36, so what, 24 or 5 of them are projected. So if they're not invited, the wisdom of that life force can't synchronize with the rest of the body. You could be a very powerful generator or manifester with all this ability to just speak, and if where you're speaking from, the life force that's coming out, let's say it's a definition in the head center for something, or from the throat to the ajna, if it's not invited, your formulation for coming up with formulas to speak, or abstract notions that have great ideas or these beautiful insights, they're not invited. And so suddenly they're disorganized. And then the confusion and the chaos comes in, because the most important thing we do is articulate. I mean, this whole show is, look, if we counted all the words on all the shows and all the YouTube channels, how many zeros are after that number? Too many, more than the national debt, you know? So we got to talk. And if it's not invited, we can't talk. And that suddenly, for me, I start to amplify that emotional disorganization coming through. And by the way, don't think of emotional disorganization as bad. This is just my word. You know, Jen, you can probably come up with a kinder word for it. That's my open emotionalness coming up with a cold word for it, which is cold. You know, it's because I'm not emotional. I don't care.
we recognized last week about the difference between, you know, talking and the emotion behind it. And ever since you said that, I've completely recognized that.
You've got an
So
emotional voice, Jen, and I can hear it more and more. I can hear it in people.
so that would be for, I can understand that. Thank you for the clarity on that. And what came in after that, because you said that was a generator and not being invited, so I can add frustration and everything on top of that
All day long. Yeah. And bitterness.
What about other design types?
So the reflector will have no definition. So I would love to get a reflector. I don't want to even put words in the reflector.
Right. I want to get their opinion too,
I would
because it
love
would
to
be
get
different.
their input on all that, because really they're experiencing reflected, manifesting, and generated channels throughout their monthly cycle. So they go through the whole gamut. But don't forget, they're resistant. Their aura resists the other. So if they run into that emotional wave, and let's say they didn't get vaccinated and the family wanted them to, and now they're bad, or there's judgment. There's a lingering judgment. I don't care how nice someone says, no, that's okay. No, there's a lingering judgment, because this emotional center hangs on inside the mind.
Mm-hmm.
The emotional center is ready to go through its wave and come to clarity. But the mind hangs on to that process. And what is mind in the habit of doing at this point on our stage of development in humanity? It's used to hanging on to the stuff that sucks over all the
Well,
time.
we are definite, whether whether it's with what's going on right now, racism, pick an emotion. That's exactly what they put out. They prey on that. They prey on our emotions, regardless of what it is. Now it's over gender.
Right.
It could be gender, whether you're, you believe in what's going on or not, vaccinated, unvaccinated, color of your skin, religious, it does not matter. It is all a separation and divide tactic, preying on emotions. And most likely, with now that we are getting deeper into the defined and undefined centers, it is magnifying because it's a back and forth, back and forth. And every time it's going back and forth, guys, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, magnified.
Magnified, amplified to the point of distortion. So key in on this word, because that's not a cold word. That's a very descriptive word, distortion.
It
Just
is
like an
distorted.
amplifier, right? You turn your amplifier up too high, you turn your radio on too high, it just distorts.
On all sides.
On all sides. That's the thing. So
the true message that should be that we need to start helping each other as a whole for humanity is so distorted right now. There's very few that are really trying, us included, that are really trying to make that change.
and
But
become
they
clear.
want that message distorted.
Become clear on what it was. Now, with my family yesterday, my sister was in from out of town. And I wanted to visit. Hi sis. And when I got in there was this just quick moment of, oh, you're here. And I know what that moment is. But then again, do I really? Because the emotional wave is so exclusive to the person. I can't be so full of hubris that I think I actually know. But I thought I knew. And regardless, I proceeded on what I thought I knew. And I sat down, we started talking, but slowly but surely I could feel the standoffishness. And then up came the subject of my children and my parents, and the whole emotional situation there allowed me to start to experience a deep sadness. My children were going to come by. My mom was informing me, and she's a vessel of love like I am. And she was informing me, oh, Daniel, your oldest is coming here, and with your grandkid and your husband, and so you'll have to be gone by then. Ooh, so that I just sat there and I was watching her inform me of this, and I was taking it in, and then I could feel that wave going through me, and it didn't take long. I lasted all of 5 minutes after that point in time. All of 5 minutes before I stood up. First I stood up, and then I tried to let it not whatever, and then I just said, hey, I got to get going. I have to go. So at that time, and I normally give my mom a hug goodbye, so I didn't do that this time. So I know that stood out, and I couldn't. And on my way to the farm from my mom's house, mom and dad's house, I noticed I was in tears. Now I'm out of their wave, but it's not gone. It's not gone. That chemistry is still working its way through my body. Yeah, I got out of that aura. That's true. But all that allowed me to do was have clarity that I want to cry. I want to feel like shit right now. I wish to feel poorly. I need to. And then I would go up and down quickly. So over the course of the half-hour ride, I was up and down so fast and feeling like amazing in these moments of like, I can get clear on this, and then back into the depths of despair. And, and then I started having these clear moments of all the things I should have said, and there's the mind coming in on all the things you should have said. I couldn't have done anything other than what I did. At another clear moment, maybe I'll say the clear thing, the things like, hey, COVID is over. Why am I still being punished? Why, because any distance between somebody over, I'm being punished for my vote, my views on this country and stuff.
Your beliefs.
My beliefs, being punished for them, when our family dynamic and our family itself is so much richer and deeper and more than any of that. That's supposed to take up a small sliver, and instead, emotionally, because there's no clarity, it gets inserted as the main elephant in the room. And it doesn't have to be. It just doesn't have to be, but it is. And so by the time I'd gotten up and down on all of this stuff, when I went, as soon as I got there, I just went up to the owner, Chris, and I know his design. He's emotionally defined. He's pretty clear. He's a role model. And he's a wonderful man. And I just told him, Chris, I don't know how long I'm going to stay. I said I made the mistake of visiting my family before I got here, and I got some really hard news, and I don't. And he literally put his hand on me, and he said, "Go over to the circle." His wife, his partner, Evie, was having an emotional resilience circle around the campfire, where everyone was about to tell what's going on in your life, and like, hey, hi, my name's Dan, and I'm an alcoholic, and
well, it's a sharing circle.
It's a sharing circle, and I'm like, what kind of dumb luck is that? I always call it dumb luck when I know it's actually serendipity. I know it's serendipity, and my vehicle guides me towards the serendipity. My body drives me towards it, and so I was like, okay, I'll grab at anything, and we're sitting there. Okay, people have to, let's go around the circle and say what's up. And here I am, first in line. I'm like, so I'll go first, and she goes to hand me the microphone. It's like, I don't need it, because I had a loud voice at that moment. And I just said, my name's Dan, and I'm working through my hatred for my family right now. That's some powerful words. And I forgot what else I said, and I went up and down on that, and I lasted all of 2 or 3 sentences, and then we passed it along. And so Evie, who's emotional as well, tribal, beautiful, she held space, and I realized in that group, oh my God, I can go through this whole emotional wave all over again. A lot, because the circle was emotional.
Of course.
We're here in this 50-50 salt and pepper, way to commune and get through this thing.
I think what's important too that's coming through now, that you're sharing your story, and thank you. That's important that we do talk about it, and we need to, you brought up some things that came in, is that we need to normalize some of this stuff. Crying, for example, normalizing crying. There have been moments where, when I was younger, I didn't realize it till I was older. It was a trauma response. When I get nervous, I laugh. Or if I get into it, I laugh. And it was a way, because there were situations that I was in that I couldn't cry, that I would start to laugh. It was a trauma response. So I learned to hold in my tears for years, and going through this self-awakening journey and doing soul work and shadow work and all that other stuff and trauma healing, that sometimes it would just come up and I would just cry. But after crying, I felt better.
That's the thing. So it always feels better afterwards. So in those moments when the tears are coming out, think about it, you're fully present. But the thing is, trauma triggers.
Your microphone kind of coming through funny. Nope, mute now. You knocked it off. There you go.
I should be back.
Yeah, perfect.
Test. So trauma triggers, I notice, trigger's a fine word. It's just, I think it has a bad connotation. I say it's triggering awareness, because laughter brings you present as well. You're not faking it. You're laughing. Sometimes we laugh, because I've done that a lot. I've gotten a lot of
No. If I'm in a traumatic situation and my life depended on it, I will burst out laughing because I'm so nervous. So that's not like, it's just it's a natural.
My question is there something wrong with that?
No, but that, I've always thought that if I needed to be quiet, I would give myself away because I couldn't help but laugh.
Right. Same here, Jennifer. The harder it is sometimes in the face of the most ridiculous depth of difficulty, sometimes I'll bust out and laugh my ass off right at it.
Well, yes, that's what I'm saying. Or when someone's trying to talk to me emotionally and I am nervous or I can't get the words out and I want to cry, laughing at them, they take it the wrong way because it looks like I'm not showing emotion when actually I am showing emotion. But I had programmed myself to do it that way. But I don't, that's subsided because I recognize that it was a trauma response, that when I do have, even in an emotional wave, I recognize it. One of my favorite things to say to myself is E plus R equals O, and that's your emotions plus your responses equal your outcomes. Well, I wasn't aware of what my emotions were, and I was reacting to them, and my outcomes always ended in what triggered more emotional waves because I was upset with how I reacted, or I didn't have the outcome that I wanted. So I would beat myself down, and then, it's a vicious cycle. But if you can at least, recognize what your emotions are, plus your reaction to those emotions, and the only way you're going to know how you're reacting is by your triggers, Dan. That whether
Well,
it's an emotion,
I got I was triggered to leave.
But then that equals your outcome.
Right.
So, but that's a healthy thing because it could have ended in a whole different outcome.
So there have been times inside of that very same dynamic where I walk in totally like equipped, like I'm aware, I got the right mojo, whatever the case is. I've done enough stuff and I feel in this really strong spot. And I'll go in and I'll hold my empowered generator stature just a certain way. And then I notice it disorganizes the emotional beings because suddenly I'm not being swept along in their wave process. And then I notice they start to, and then I hold the madder they get, or let's just say the more tense it gets, suddenly I'm able to just hold my conviction, follow, centering, following the design to follow one's own convictions. And my voice stays calm, and I actually try and inject logic and reason into the whole thing and ask the right questions. And as soon as I ask the right questions, what I get is I don't want to talk about it. Whether it's a few sentences later or right away, it always comes back to the same thing. And to me, that just puts me back in the prison of, well, I was subjugated, I was harmed, I was cast out, I was taken out of, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, any of the things. I couldn't come to family things. Can't even see my own kids. So I'm being punished. And so sooner or later, this is all going to come to a head. I don't know what it's going to look like. It's going to look like the discussion that says, I'm being punished. Please tell me how this is justified. Something of this nature. I don't know. But so that's how I come to clarity over it all, is over time. But I still don't have, dude, it ends up feeling so bad when it's on the downside that just wanting to get away is a form of rejection of the other. So bring it to a couple or two people. One's rejecting the other. Now, how's that going to deal? How well do we communicate when one is rejecting the other?
Well, see, we need to talk about solutions. Everybody goes through that. Like, even when I'm in my down waves, I need to ask myself, when I feel rejected, why do I feel rejected? When you start digging deeper, and, there's several different ways that you guys can do that, but what's running in your subconscious is going to continue to influence your life until you get to the core reason of why you feel that way in the first place. So I think that's important for any undefined or defined being to do it, because either way, it does sound like, we are still reacting through our emotions. None of us have ever been taught to have effective conversations, because when we do have these emotions come up, then that's when projection starts and the other person isn't seen, and assumption starts to run. You're assuming that person is saying that. That's why I feel like I've noticed that too. I try to go the extra length of getting clarity first on understanding where the other side is coming from.
I didn't. So that's the thing. So when I'm as an open emotional person, if I'm not really clear going in, if I get caught off guard even a little bit, and this is after I've been through my process for a long time, if I get caught off guard, I suddenly start to fear the conflict. And that fear comes in the form of I start getting angry or I start getting fearful. And you put these two things together and it becomes confusing. And suddenly I don't know what to say. And now the mind trap starts to take over and drive it. Yet I'm not emotional. So as these emotional functions are moving through me, I was not raised as an emotional being because I don't have it defined. So I have no way of truly making steady sense of it. I have to make sense of it afterwards, after the experience. And then it's not the same sense I'm going to make of it later because at a different place or in a different circumstance. So I don't have a cheat sheet I can just rely on that I'm going to get to go back to that leads me unafraid all the time of the conflict, avoidant, trying to avoid the conflict, yet being smack in the middle of it and wanting to spur it on. Part of me, the empowered part of me, wants to generate the conflict, and the part of me that has this open and still has these not self beams go through wants to get away from it. So it's a horrible mix. Leaves me feeling sometimes weak. Why didn't I get in there more? What's wrong with you, boy? Are you weak? You know, it's a thing that shows up sometimes, and it's awful. And then I start getting, in the past, what I don't get now is spiteful. But I don't stop the hate from moving through my body. I hate them for this.
Damn. You're mad at them. Hate is a very strong word.
No, but dude, I have to live out my incarnation cross.
Yes.
It's a vessel of love or not.
I know.
So I have to live that out so that that potent material can move through my consciousness and avoid me from making that be a life path. My life path is I'm on the right angle cross of the vessel of love. I'm a natural here to be called out to network and influence others as to what it is to move into the love of your own self. That's what I'm here doing. So when the or not of that comes along, it's a valuable process so I can live out that process on the other side. I have to live it out so I can see what is it I'm truly not at the end of it all. But in the meantime, that's some powerful awful sauce. It's not awesome sauce, it's awful sauce. I've got that commercial where they said awesome sauce, but it's awful. And so, but it broke when I got into this group circle. And Dan, you know, what's up with you right now? And I just said what it was. There was no words minced. You know, I'm working through the hatred of my family. That's awful. I don't even like the way it sounds coming out of my mouth, but what am I going to do? Say it's not so when it is? So,
well, again, I feel like we need to offer solutions with this too. And that requires you to do deeper shadow work.
Right. Well, I have to live through it. I have
well,
to. The shadow
no.
work
Well, it is living through it, but you can't just sit there and just let it flow and live through it. It's because it's going to keep happening over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until you dig a deeper level to go to a deeper level of clarity on why it is that you feel that way in the first place. It's not really directed to your parents. You know, there's something underneath there that's causing
it is.
whatever
Right
emotions that you're feeling.
It's directed right at my mom and my dad and my children and my sister. It's directed right at them. You as beings are still punishing me. This isn't fair, and I hate you for it. What I hate more is my inability to explain that. So I hate myself too. So it's this giant freaking hatred factory, which, by the way, isn't really there right now. I'm using the language of yesterday, but the same intensity isn't there. And it's part of it is deliciously conscious building, because as I keep living through it, Jen, I got this busy mind that won't stop pouring through, making sense of it. So Maybe I'm lucky in that way. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. What would you suggest?
Helping me make sense makes me understand what emotions are coming up and digging deeper into it.
We have to come to the realization that those of us who are open don't have a steady way to make clarity from this process.
Tressa does. I mean, she's into hypnotherapy. It's another form of hypnotherapy.
Tressa's not clear on any of this.
Well, I'm not saying that she's clear, and I'm not clear on mine either. I think that's why it's 50-50, because we're both learning this. But I do know from an emotional being, not understanding their emotions or where it was coming from or what was happening, you know, when you dig deeper, you even study the emotional chart. There's underlining emotions that are triggering that hate. That's just a surface. You know, there's so much that's underneath, and that's where we keep repeating these patterns. These things keep coming up. So we keep having these situations because we're not looking at a deeper level of what that is, what's running in our subconscious. Right now, you are going off what's coming up in the conscious.
Right.
It's like going a step deeper. So,
well, the thing is, going to a deeper level is a nebulous description. What does that mean to us that are unemotional? And by the way, I need to correct something. Tressa is aware of all of this, but Tressa and I still, in the evening when we talk, half the time, we're still commiserating we're afraid of this thing. We don't know how. We don't know yet. And it's it's the coolest conversation that we empower each other to have. And it's amazing. So it's a big deal. But what does going deeper mean? What does that mean to you? Because to me, I think I'm going pretty deep. I lived through it all last night. I played my piano in a trance and had these moments just start to keep coming through. I don't know what else to do. In fact, knowing what to do is certainly not knowing necessarily what to do. I have to live through this.
Well, we have to, the ones that are in the emotional waves have to live through it as well.
Right. That's the point.
But
and I think the emotional wave is deep enough is the thing. To say, to put extra things on it, criteria may do a service and at times may not. And I don't know where that line lies.
You only know until you try.
Right.
And what I'm saying, coming from, look, everybody, one of us, every single person on this planet has trauma. Okay. Regardless of how, it doesn't matter. We all have it. But it's the recognizing it, the emotional. I would not be on this podcast right now because I would still be going up and down if I didn't take the time to recognize my emotions and start asking myself, why do I feel that way? It's not an extra thing. Like if y'all are looking for answers, that's my answer. It's something that has helped me. I feel like it would help defined or undefined. It obviously helps undefined. I mean, Tressa speaks about it. It's done wonders. Hypnotherapy has done wonders in her life.
Yeah. It seems to have done wonders. Yes.
But it's digging deeper. It's asking yourself why. It's looking under the core of what is coming up and knowing that you are not your emotions. Your emotions are going to trigger thoughts, and your thoughts are what's going to trigger the emotions to escalate, because whatever story is playing on in your head is really not your story.
It's not your story. We need to actually address that head and ajna center real quick, just to point out that the frequency, to point out the frequency of this center. And if we recall, the 3 awareness centers have a frequency. They have this field of a frequency. Remember this, what the spleen is, how it's in the moment. Its frequency is in the moment. That's it. It's on off in the moment. It comes, it goes quickly, like stunningly. But the mind, its frequency is cognition over all of time. So you got something that happened in 7th grade, and it's just as simple. You could be holding on to that even through now.
You could be holding on to stuff that you don't even consciously remember.
Of course. In fact, we undoubtedly are.
Absolutely.
Are holding on to that. But then this emotional clarity process can help bring us to clarity over all of it. But when we get caught in the trap, I noticed that you're right. The emotional nervousness sends a trigger into the mind starts making a story, right? Or rehashing a story that's already been playing. And that
shit
story,
that don't matter.
yep, shit stuff that don't matter. And that story, and that we're not required to be certain on, right? We're not.
Well, it leads to assumption and
Right.
then, I mean, I can't tell you how many freaking I've played out how arguments have had to go, but when I get into the moment, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. I have to take a step back, gain that clarity, maybe get some balance and come back in. That's stuff that we need to normalize. You
Right.
did great yesterday
There
by
it is, Jen. That's
exiting.
the thing to really normalize the getting out and the coming back in with a whole whopping truckload of space left for both yourself and the other. So I think one of the main things is to recognize, oh God, A, I'm not about to get what I want, either party, and B, I'm going to have to leave a lot of space for the other party and myself, free of judgment, because my mind is going to use that frequency of over all of time. The mind's frequency is once I got it, it's there forever. But the emotional solar plex says, no, I sort this out in a wave. I sort this out in this wave chemistry, wave motion that's going through this incredible awareness center that's giving us this new awareness, waking up in us now. It's waking up in humanity in our lifetime dramatically. It's been there.
The emotions may be the ones that's giving the depth.
Yeah, it truly is. And so space and not directing to the other something that they need to do. That's something that just never helps. You know what you need to do? That never helps. Jen, you're in your way. Well, Jen, you know what you need to do? I'm going through my thing like I just described you, and you start telling me, well, you know what you need to do? I don't think that's mostly is not very helpful unless it's asked for.
Well, it takes the individual needs to do it, and there are so many different ways to do different things. It's finding what works for the individual. But I would say even through the emotions, the emotional beings having their waves, you just said that even when you are impacted by that wave, you have to wait till you have clarity. So
I can't get clear in the moment.
So it's finding it would be finding. We got some really awesome comments that I do want to chime in on. Artsy did mention that I think is great, and I'm glad she did bring it up. Was shadow work, and it is a form of the shadow work of doing it instead of like the emotional foundation. But there's so many different tools out there to help you.
Shadow work is a nebulous term. If I say, hey, you got to do your shadow work, that's a nebulous term. It's not concretized into something. So I don't really, when we say shadow work, I know what my shadow work looks like. I know what that looks like. For me, it's letting it pour through and watching it and recognizing it's not me, it's what's pouring through. But is that forgive my ignorance or my naiveness, but is that what shadow work really is? To me, that's what it is.
Well, for me, when that happens, I do that. But as it's going through, like it'll go through like the scrolling banner down the bottom. That's how I see things go through. And as they're going through, I'll get an emotional charge through my body. And when I get an emotional charge, I immediately go, why did I have that? Why do I feel that way? It's like I'll pick an emotional charge that I think every defined and undefined person would know. Jealousy.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, when people get jealous, what are their first reactions? Projection, getting ugly, they don't like that person, all those things. Underlining, looking at the emotion jealousy and looking deeper, do you want to know what jealousy is telling you?
That you don't think you're good enough.
Nope. Wrong.
What's it telling you?
It's something that you want to desire. But you can't have it at the moment because you're not in the vibrational match to have it. because you're desiring it, but it's something that you want. So how do you get there to have that? Well, that means you have to shift your vibration, because right now the vibration you are in is going to just show you things that you're desiring, but you yourself have to shift that.
Every time I've since had jealousy in my life on me, it had everything to do with also my open ego thinking I wasn't good enough.
That too. We could totally go deeper into the emotion centers.
Yep. And into all the rest of the centers. And don't forget, guys, as you look at these two different solar plexus, one defined, one open, please notice that from the root, there's adrenalized pressure in 3 separate awareness streams pouring through, moving up to the throat and the ego. So it's all there. There's all these 6, all these 6 channels are there. They're all doing their work. And then the channel from 59 to 6 going from the sacral is what fires up the emotional solar plex. The sacral empowers it with sustained sacral energy. So this particular emotional solar plex center, since it's a motor and it's an awareness, it's got a lot of supercharge to it. It's loaded with supercharged material. It's loaded.
It's something we're definitely going to have to experiment and investigate more.
Any other comments?
Yeah.
Because there might be too many, but cherry pick.
Freya, I'll definitely get back with you about your chart. Actually, if you want for your chart, click the links down below and send Dan a message. Book a session with Dan, and he can definitely help you out with that.
And go to Joe. Does she have her chart?
No, we're not going over it right now.
Okay.
She did say she's right. Hate is a secondary emotion. It's covering other emotions, which are all covering fear. It all boils down to love and fear.
Yep.
That's very well true. Artseed agreed. Yes, Freya, it's secondary to fear, which I could argue is the opposite of love. Others would argue indifference or hate being the opposite, but neither are, I feel. Fear is the root of hate, which it is. I feel that too, because you ultimately, when you dig deeper into hate, the reason you hate is because there's a fear. There's an underlining fear right there. And what is fear? False expectations appearing real. You either fuck everything and run or face everything and rise. I love what is that called? Acronyms?
Acronyms, yeah. Those are
I love my acronyms.
I was going over that in my head while you're doing that.
I say that because I have fear come up a lot, but it is the false expectations.
Yeah, so we all do. They're supposed to pour through. And by the way, I wasn't mad at myself or judgmental for having these feelings. That's the thing. In the past, I would get very confused about it. And I would, and so, I say my mantras, I talk to myself, I'll sing in the car so that I get brought present. I try to bring myself present, or I'll watch the lines on the road to bring myself present. And when I do that, presence always cures this. When I say cure it, it's curing as in like you'll cure a ham so that it can be enjoyed later. So it brings these things into a sharper focus for something to deal with and talk through later. And that's exactly what happened. You
said something earlier, and I really think that we need to start bringing awareness to that too, or just, for an experiment. But you said sometimes when you are better prepared or you're in alignment, you feel good, you can walk into a situation like that and handle it a little bit different, where sometimes it's not. And I'm recognizing that in my situation, which goes back down to my vibration and how I'm feeling. And then for me, and you already know how I work, I'm always going that step deeper. I start recognizing what it is that I am doing in my life. So just like Qigong, if you do Qigong or yoga or Pilates, even exercising or walking, that's something that can help you stay more in a vibrational state. It helps balance that, because our vibrations inside of us do, I feel, play a part a lot to this. It may even impact the way that the energy is flowing through us. I haven't dug deeper into that, but on a vibrational scale, our emotions do resonate at a certain vibration. And if human design is about how the energy is flowing through us, I would say that that would play a part. So maybe as an undefined individual, I know you get really happy, like when you were on the farm, that brought you joy. You couldn't wait to get off this and get to the farm because it brought you joy. But I'm pretty sure at the same time, it brought you balance, that if at those times, like if you would have gone to the farm and then gone to your parents' house, you may have not reacted a certain way. So that may be something that you can start to recognize in tools that you can offer with undefined, since we're trying to find clarity on how this works.
Well, I do know that as an unemotional being, the clarity that ends up coming is it's disjunct. It's not consistent. What happens is I have to pile up a bunch of different clarities to get the rest of the way clear on what's a thing or what's not a thing. I don't know if it's the same way with you guys, but if I start amplifying that emotional wave, I am lost to it. And that's on the high or the low end. My last girlfriend, when we were on the high end of our wave, I was lost into all of that. I was ready to quit my job. I was so lost in all of that. It was beautiful. I was like, I love being swept away. Sweep me away. I just know not to quit I didn't actually quit my job, Jack. The feelings were there and the energy was there, but I knew it wasn't me. That energy was going to be gone as soon as I was out of that aura. And that's what it was. As soon as I was out of my parents' aura, that energy was gone, and I was left with everything I had experienced as a form of a emotional muscle memory, we'll call it, because it just kept sort of working on me. It was festering like a little fire that was still left behind, not fully put out. So, another thing about unemotional people, when we're open emotionally, we very often think we're wicked emotional. And we are, in one sense, we're wicked open to being wicked emotional, quickly. But then it dies down, and that can be very confusing for the let's say the partner who's defined emotionally, and they watch their unemotionally defined partner get swept up in a moment, and it feels so good, and then they wonder why their partner who's unemotional doesn't stay there. When the person who's emotionally defined can go through a whole process and live there for a little while, and the one who's open emotionally won't necessarily stay there. Because again, it's inconsistent. And if we try to make the emotional solar-plexus a consistent working motor in our body when it's open, that's a problem. And if we try and shut it off and make it go away when it is a working motor defined in our body graph, that's a problem. I can't tell you how many emotional people with the emotional wave said, make it go away. Make it go away.
I've had people tell me that. So I can recognize that, because I don't, what would it be in my chart, but there's something that doesn't, I guess it's my ego. I don't give up.
No,
I do.
And you
I
shouldn't
do have
give
something
up.
to prove.
But once that ego bites onto something, why should it give up? It's
especially when my emotions are high and I am not clear. And a lot of the times when I was having those high and low emotions, I can tell you exactly why they were. I wasn't communicating. So informing is a big thing for me, but I wasn't communicating to others how I was feeling. I was feeling unheard, not, acknowledged, either, put aside exactly what you're feeling with your family. So I would bottle all that stuff up, and then one day it would erupt. And most of the time under the influence of alcohol, which just magnified it even more.
Of course.
So, but, getting back and,
Jennifer, how do you feel when a non-emotional person, an open emotional person, suddenly dials out and stops caring about what it is you cared about. Because that's the thing we emotional people do. We're not hooked on being emotional about the thing. So as soon as we're done or out of aura or whatever, we might start whistling Dixie. We don't care. I mean, when I say don't care, we don't care to the degree that the emotional solar plex would like us to care. Sometimes is what it seems like.
I think that would depend on whatever the situation is, because it could come in different ways, especially if you are in a relationship with somebody. I think that would, I'm not going to lie, yeah, it would affect me a little bit.
Yep.
However, I have experienced that through my life many times, and on this journey of self-healing through the comments, definitely, Dan, go back and read, because there's some beautiful things about shadow work and all sorts of different things. Lots of great advice, everybody. Arcseed, if I don't get all to them, definitely we're gonna go over them. But going back, that is me placing happiness in other people's hands. I won't do that anymore.
Right.
I will bring me happy. So, but if we're all if your opinion or your emotions change about something, that's really you. And if I have feelings about that comes up, because of where I'm at in my journey, believe me, it'll trigger something emotionally. I will step back and I will analyze the fuck out of it on why it is that I feel that way, because my emotions have nothing to do with the other person. They're all mine.
You're
And
two F-bombs to my 0, just so you know.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is,
Right.
but I, you know, I, I am somebody that I have learned, I projected a lot in my emotions and my emotional waves. I baggage jumped. I dumped my problems on others. I
Yep.
was expecting someone to make me happy,
Right.
someone to fix why I was feeling crappy. And I had to do something to make a change, and the only way that I knew how to do that was I knew that my emotions were out of whack, and I needed to get into control over my emotions as much as possible. I
Right.
realized along the journey I cannot control the emotions. However, I can find what keeps keeping them come up to the surface. We experienced this at the very beginning of this whole podcast, remember? I was
Yep.
constantly having emotional triggers because I was trying to constantly figure out how I fit into everything.
Right.
And and
You
Dan, if I
forced
did not take
clarity,
it,
Jen. You forced the clarity.
I had to
We
look.
need our emotional beings to force the clarity. When I say force it, interject it, help it along, empower it, be it.
I looked
Force
deeper
it.
to find the clarity in it. And I realized along the way that you are right when you say awareness kills it. And it's not that it kills it, but when you bring awareness to it, it's magical, actually. It
Yeah.
really helps diffuse some of that emotional charge, that's whatever's coming up to the surface, which ultimately is the energy that is filtering through your human design, which is probably triggering gates and memories and all sorts of stuff that doesn't have anything to do with you, that Lorena said ultimately goes back down to your 5-year-old.
Right.
It's what happened with when you were 5 years old.
Right. That 5-year-old knew a lot of things. I remember being 5 years old. As soon as I was done caring about it, I didn't want to have to care about it. My generator body was busy empowering itself to be on the move and share whatever the concepts were coming out of my head. That's what I was supposed to do. But somewhere along the way, I think I started getting taught a little bit. Oh, you're supposed to care, and guys, don't take it like it's all cold. Like, hey, the guy doesn't care. He's cold because he doesn't care. No, it's about being able to sustain the emotional warmth that can care emotionally for the other. that can be a whole day of hand holding and being there for somebody and holding that kind of true open space. If you're open emotionally, you're not always there to hold that same kind of space that a smooth, aware, emotional being can hold, especially if they're tribal, or they can just hold it.
And that's beautiful that we have this awareness now, because this is why it is a tribal thing. Going back to exactly what, you sharing your story, and that's ultimately you're getting kicked out of your tribe. You're on the outskirts, which is not in our design. That's not how we are supposed to happen. And because we have that awareness to it, it is also recognizing too that, there's lots of relationships out there, guys, that are, one's emotional, one's non-emotional. And how many times do emotional beings are like, oh, they don't care, he has no feel. That's not it. They may be non-emotional, the other sex. That doesn't mean you cannot have a friend, or go to a healing circle, or whatever it is that you
Or
need to
just
do.
recognize the limitation.
That too.
Yeah, seeing it, helps put it in perspective. I remember it I forgot where it was. Like if someone's dog dies and they're very upset about all of that, I don't know how long I can hold space for that sometimes. I mean, by the way, I'll hold ultimate space as it relates to a container. They'll be safe in the container, but up close and personal space, like, support for that, I'm not always going to be there to hold you. So after a little while, in my heart, I'm realizing, yeah, I know dog died. Dog has a right to die. Everything dies. This is it has to become okay. Listen to the coldness of my voice. Hey, this has to become okay.
Dan, that's okay. There's some things that I'm really good at detaching with love from. So there have been times where I have come across on something, not like when a pet passes away or anything like that. Well, it depends. We had a pet recently that I knew was old. I knew it was her time, and she passed on, and I cried and did my thing and moved on. And it was emotional for some other people, and it went on for a week. I viewed it differently, but I get what you're saying on that one.
Right. And then that's probably something that you guys who are emotionally defined are picking up from us as a wisdom. Hey, we do get to move on.
Yes.
Because because we're not really supposed to just cling to the thing and have it become our life story. We've seen that happen. My life is my loss.
Yes.
That's not us.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's where the focus keeps going because of that dang frequency of the mind. It hung on to the loss through all of time. It won't let it go. It's not supposed to let it go. It's supposed to hang on to it. It's our clarity that's supposed to put it in perspective. You had a loss. Okay, so we get to lose things. That's allowed. It's allowed. How does this all work out in a relationship? Because these two different aspects are the most highly attracted to each other. They're so attracted, especially so the open is very attracted to the defined emotional solar-plexus center. That's where all the pleasure and pain, and that's the pleasure-pain principle on the planet, and everything that's juicy is really coming out of this center. Not everything, but so much. So open is totally attracted to that, and defined is attracted to the open emotionally because it's something that's different. It's different from them, and but the thing is, they're very different. How do let's talk about these two centers, open and defined, in relationship to the other, partnership. Boy girl stuff, or never mind, boy girl partners, call it. I'm just showing my own bias, but
we could probably do a whole another episode on that, because then you can go through the different gates.
Yeah, and things that would happen between people who are partners.
I actually think that would be. Are you up to do a part 3? Because it seems like a lot of people really want to know about the undefined and defined, because it is important that
In
we
relationship to the other. That might
yeah
not
we bring it to the attention of what it is that we are supposed to learn off of each other. Thank you for bringing up the awareness of being able to let go. I was one that did not let go. I was holding on to stuff like so long ago
right.
until I had that I recognized that I was, and I let it go. And oh my God, it is freeing. It is, there is a whole clarity that comes with that. So,
So it is.
um,
Yeah. It's a very serious topic. I mean, the whole thing is just so important. And maybe we could go through the gates of the solar plex center and talk about it in relationships between people who are, in bonded relationships. That's not a bad idea to just because, again, the solar plex is so important. The longer this wave of ours of clarity making wave stays polluted and distorted, the longer this planet will have its mayhem. Because again, look at all the decisions we made in haste that were emotional decisions that were meant to take time.
well, we are, I think we're definitely on to something, because again, we don't know how to have effective conversations just because of why you said, and really understanding, or coming to an even ground that you're feeling a certain way and I'm feeling a certain way. So I really am enjoying these conversations because I'm getting a lot of clarity in them.
Yeah, I'll say
And,
to Mom,
and not knowing what I was going to say, I had a thought when you were talking about, some people don't know how to have genuine, effective relationships, and that is important that we have. There are a ton of people out there who have relationships or friends that are truly not that at all, but it's out of whatever reason. So for the health of the tribe and the collective as a whole, I would say relationships is a core fundamental thing to start with. So
we're meant to pair bond. We're
mhm.
meant to pair bond. We're meant to actually commune and get together and, of course, make more while we're at it, make babies and protect them. But
Yeah.
along with all that, one last thing I can think of about the emotional solar-plex center and it being open is versus defined is as you guys actually start to learn the clarity process of this wave, suddenly our amplification of it will be so much cleaner. And it'll be something that we can start to point out, hey, you're amplifying this, it looks like. And then the person who's doing the amplifying, me, because I'm open, I could start to, oh, yeah, it would be like a little bit of cold water splash on the face. And that can go both ways. Hey, you're attaching meaning to the low side of this wave. We have to wait over.
Yes, because it's important to recognize too when you are when an emotional being is reacting on a high or a low.
Yeah, right. That's not the time to actually make the decision. And then suddenly emotional people can come to the awareness, if I don't wait out my wave, the decision I make, I can almost guarantee isn't the right decision. And then that navigates them down the wrong path and welcome to the misery of life. So, I mean, what is life other than the decisions we make? Really, we are
exactly. Well, that is
we're the culmination of all those decisions that went before.
Yep.
So that's the thing. How else do we get involved in a relationship? How else do we get by? The emotional person has to realize the non-emotional person doesn't always have the capacity. And the non-emotional person has to recognize sometimes you have to grow the capacity or inform them that you don't have the capacity. Because we can't know until we're there. How will we know? We have to be there. And some, I guess there's even going to be times when the open emotional is just going to have to suck it up without the capacity and try and hang in there long enough so that the emotional person can see you don't have the capacity, do you? And then there's empathy, even though the emotional person is having the hardest of the time because they're the ones on the wave that is this chemistry. but they can certainly come to see maybe my partner doesn't have the capacity yet. They're trying to act as if they do, or they're trying to live out having it for the sake of me.
Yeah.
You know, so these are all things that are part of it all. It's a lot, Jen. We got to
Yes.
come to grips because it's making our whole world an emotional powder keg. You got to hurry up. We got to go to war. We got to. The Russians are bad. The Russians are good. The Ukrainians are good. No, they're bad. No, they're all this stuff. You know, the Great Reset. Hurry, run, be afraid. It's get your jab, get another. Hurry, hurry. You're gonna kill grandma. Emotional, hasty.
Oh, it is all. Yes, I'm.
No business making fast emotional decisions. That's the moral of the story. We have
Boy,
no.
won't that put a glitch in the system if half of us sit there and say, "Sorry, can't make a
Right.
decision because I'm on an emotional wave," because the whole world is on an emotional wave at one point or another, and
I wonder
the
how that is.
non-emotionals are magnifying that.
Right.
So if all of us emotional beings, guys, started telling the system that we can't make a decision right now because we have to wait to get clarity, and maybe if they could tone down what they're,
Demanding of you.
demanding of our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But that
Mhm.
would, if emotional beings, going back to that, that if you are struggling, guys, to start wrapping up the show, if you are struggling and you don't know if you're emotional or non-emotional, or you don't even know where to get started, please make sure to check us out. Go to tinyurl.com/HDA links, LINKS, and make sure you first and foremost book a session with Dan, and we can start to help you guys out, because it is very important that we start learning this and start learning how to come together as with each other as a tribe and communicate. It's deconditioning goes in all different directions.
We need it all, and you're
We
absolutely
were
right.
never taught these things.
No, now we're being taught it, so we can clear up this planet of ours. It's time. We're due.
We are due.
Amen.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Jennifer. I love you.
I love you too. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, that was my closing remark.
Okay. Thank you guys for everybody who chimed in. We had a lot of different comments, a lot of agreeing. Savannah did say before we pop off, yes, Ross said how it was open emotionally and would be crazy emotional when around his emotional solar-plexus, and as soon as he was away or on a walk, he would be laughing and fine.
Picture that. That's an amazing moment.
Here's something from Arc Seed for you, Dan. So, Dan, if your jealousy showed up that you weren't good enough, the jealousy here is the shadow, and the feeling you felt from the shadow is something for you to explore deeper.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Archie.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, everybody who tuned in. Not too sure who we're doing this Wednesday night. We'll see who's going to be popping up in the headlines this week. You just never know. But if you haven't already, make sure to tune in to our Wednesday night shows at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you haven't, if you haven't subscribed already to the newsletter, make sure that you do that. Go check out our website. We are definitely updating. There is a button to book with Dan now, so make sure that you do that. And again, if you have any questions, you need any help, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you for all of your support. We are so grateful for that.
It's amazing.
Dan's shaking this. Go ahead, Dan.
I'm just saying it's amazing, and thank you so much. That's why we're here.
Yes, it is exactly why we are here. We want to make sure that we help to help the world, guys. So both me and Dan, going through the business thing, they always say niche down your niche. Who do you want to work with? And both of us really have the same response most of the time as everybody.
Everybody.
We just
You
want to
can't
help.
have it. You can't have it. Screw you. We can't have it.
We just want to help everybody because everybody is in need. And if you are struggling, make sure to reach out. So with that said, y'all enjoy y'all Sunday. Have a beautiful and blessed day. And we will see you next time.
Next time.
Bye now.